By now you might have some idea of what frames and metaframes are. You might be able to recognize them in certain social interactions. But you might still not be sure how to get control of the metaframe and stay in control of it. I remember when I discovered the metaframe, at first I wasn't sure how to get control of it or stay in control of it. I'd have situations where every once in a while I'd go out with a girl, maybe she was a really beautiful girl, and I just knew she was the prize I was trying to win over, but I didn't know how to reverse it on her. Or I've been in other situations where I started off as the prize, but then at a certain point I lost control of being the prize. The woman became the prize I was trying to win over, and I didn't know how to get back that control. So maybe you've been there before. But what I did is, after a lot of experimenting and a lot of testing, I came up with a 4-step method that will make it really easy to establish the metaframe, to gain control of the metaframe, and to sustain it, to stay in control of it. So I think it's really going to help. Step 1 is to define the metaframe. Okay, in most male-female interactions, the guy does not bother to define the metaframe. This is what most guys do. They don't bother to define it, which that's a losing battle, because if you don't define it, the woman is going to define it for you, and she's going to define it as her being the prize that you're trying to win over. Or the other thing that happens is guys will define it, but they'll define it as the woman being the prize they're trying to win over. And as you know, women feel no attraction towards men who aren't the prize. So it's a losing battle. I always like to go into the situation defining the metaframe as me being the prize, the woman is trying to win over, as her wanting to have sex with me, as her wanting to sleep with me, but I'm only going to sleep with her if she lives up to my standards and expectations. Okay, you don't have to define it exactly like that, but you better have some variant of you being the prize she's trying to win over. Step 2 is to assume the metaframe in advance. This means that before you even start talking to a girl, you assume that you are a prize she wants to win over. Let me tell you a story about this. Several years ago, I was in Manhattan Beach in Southern California with a buddy of mine, and he started chatting up this really attractive English girl. And he was telling her about his travels in Europe, and she started to bust his balls, telling him that she thought he was a bullshitter and that he had never been to Europe. And out of nowhere, he throws her a curveball and he says, are you bisexual? And she says, looking at him like he's dog shit, ew, that's gross. I don't like girls. And he says, well, this relationship isn't going to work out because you'll bring home ugly girls. And she was like, no, I'll bring home hot girls, I promise. And it was just amazing to see the interaction go from her being a prize he was trying to win over to him being the prize she was trying to win over. He kind of switched it around on her. And there's some great linguistic tricks that he used to do this. But the reason he was able to do this and those linguistic tricks worked is because he assumed in advance that he was the prize she was trying to win over. A great exercise for assuming the metaframe in advance is to rehearse all of those beliefs that I gave you. The more you rehearse them, the easier and more automatic it's going to become for you to assume this metaframe in advance with every woman you interact with. There's also some great visualization exercises you can do to assume the metaframe in advance. I'm going to get into that in my advanced course, but I think this is a good start. And when you assume that metaframe in advance, it's going to be very easy to establish the metaframe and to stay in control of it.